thanks to Nahida, it's time for Wanderer to experience the traveler's point of view of the chaos that we went through in Sumeru for him. However, since we literally just went over the Sumeru Archon quest in, well, quite a bit of detail with Arlecchino, this will be much shorter in Sumeru, but compensate for the fact that we will have quite a few side quests that we have to do in order to unlock the interlude chapter, but we'll get there later. Make sure you stay till the end because I'll be having a little contest with a welcome moon up for grabs. Hi, Editing Ren here. I recorded this a while ago, and some of the yaps might not make sense anymore, but it would have delayed the video even further if I redid it, so I hope you still enjoy. We arrive in Sumeru, and after following a strange woman into a cave in hopes of finding our way to the city, we get knocked out. Genshin provides the absolutely worst timed pop-up to remind me that I need to log in more than once every 6 months, and after our incense-fueled, vision, we do end up in Gandharvaville, so I guess our goal was successful?
If, on the off chance, Farbode simply enjoys having little imaginary fairies dance before his eyes, then we'll just let him be.
Mind you, this is our first introduction to Tighnari. We meet Kale and Tighnari, and after Tighnari explains the incense, we play Follow the Leader with Kale before we go and take on the Withering Zone. Tighnari asks us to bring some food to Apasia, so we bring her a snack box. What's in the snack box, you might ask? Well, let's take a look, because today's video is sponsored by Sakura Co. Sakura Co is a monthly Japanese artisan snack box that has a focus on supporting and preserving Japanese culture with treats from local snack makers across Japan. With Sakura Co, you can experience Japan from the comfort of your home thanks to meticulously curated boxes containing both traditional and seasonal snacks, like mochi, dorayaki, manju, and more. Each month's box also includes authentic Japanese teas and a piece of traditional Japanese tableware to help bring some Japanese tradition to your home. For the month of June, Sakura Co introduces us to the island of Kyushu with the theme Taste of Kyushu. Kyushu is Japan's southernmost main island and has long been a point of connection with the outside world. This month's box allows you to uncover the unique characteristics and history of each of the 7 prefectures through their culture, confectionery, and craftsmanship. Learn more about one of Japan's most formidable castles in Kumamoto, the central role that Fukuoka played in the early diplomatic ties with China and Korea, or the long-running international trading history that led to a rise of Japanese and Western fusion in Nagasaki with the cultural guide booklet. Also included are stories and history of the snack makers found in this month's box, information about each snack, and of course, allergen information so you can enjoy your snacks worry-free. So, what are some of the snacks from this month's box? Well, let me share my personal favorites. As soon as I opened the booklet and spotted the Suro no Sato marshmallow, I was thrilled to try it. The cute design resembling a soft-boiled egg combined with the sweet and gentle taste of the marshmallow and yellow bean paste filling was one of my favorites of this month. Another snack I loved was the Amao Strawberry Crunch. Infused with the flavors of Amao strawberries, a type of strawberry grown in Fukuoka known for its color, size, and sweetness, I definitely understand why people make a point to travel to Kyushu during strawberry season. The Nagasaki honey castella was another delicious treat. Castella actually has its origins in Nagasaki, dating back to the 16th century when Portuguese merchants brought a similar confection to the city, resulting in the eventual creation of the traditional Japanese sponge cakes we have today. Also included are Kumamoto watermelon gummies. I am an absolute fiend for gummies, and these were sweet, juicy, and chewy. Definitely a perfect summer snack. So here's a fun story for everyone. I recorded myself making and trying these kuzikiri, a popular summer snack made from kudzu starch. Or at least I thought I recorded it. Either I literally hallucinated pressing the record button and accidentally turned off the recording, or my phone just decided to be my enemy for the day. Regardless, I found out after I finished eating it that I didn't record it. So my review is that I was pleasantly surprised with the deliciously sweet taste of the honey mixed with the cool noodles. The noodles have a bit of a jelly-like appearance, but consistency-wise, they're a little thicker and soak up the honey perfectly. I can imagine this being absolutely incredible on a hot summer day, especially with fruit on the side. Now, of course, while I tried the kuzukiri, I had to use this month's included tableware, a pair of Okasa lacquer chopsticks. These chopsticks are such good quality and feature Japanese motifs of good fortune and beauty. Included in each month's Sakura Co box is a specialty tea, and this month's Chiran Ryokucha, a type of green tea from the Kagoshima prefecture. As we all know, I am an absolute lover of all things green tea, and one of my favorite parts of the monthly Sakura Co boxes has been trying various types of green tea from around Japan. I found this tea had an amazing aroma and a very sweet and earthy taste. It warmed me up and soothed my throat from the allergies I have been fighting this month, and I definitely look forward to starting my day tomorrow with the other tea bag. This is just a sample of the kind of box you can get from Sakura Co. If you order before the 15th of July, you'll get to experience Mount Fuji summertime, with snacks like Mount Fuji biscuit, matcha friand, and the Mount Fuji jelly, plus a beautiful Mount Fuji dish. Follow the link in the description and use the code REN to get $5 off your first order. My code also works with Yume Twins, which has anime and otaku goodies, No Make No Life, which contains Korean and Japanese cosmetics and skincare, and of course, Tokyo Treat, which has monthly snack boxes that you can see me unbox in some previous videos. Thank you so much to Sakura Co for sponsoring today's video, and now let's get back to Sumeru. Now, before you ask, Ren, why are you going so quickly through Sumeru? Well, there are maybe a dozen fights, and that feels generous, in the entirety of Sumeru. Not to mention, we have 5 acts of Sumeru, Kari Bear, Raiden's Act 1 story quest, Kazuha's story quest, and then Inversion of Genesis. I'd rather give a more detailed recap of the story quests and Inversion of Genesis, so Sumeru Archon Quest gets a TLDR. We meet 3 of the Sumeru main cast, with some introductions more friendly than others, before it's suggested we head to Port Ormos to find more information. In Port Ormos, we nearly get scammed out of 500,000 Mora by some members of Ainel Okmar, but our wallet is saved by Alhaitham. My minuscule improvements in solo challenges shows this time with the ability to complete the Meet Dory challenge on my first attempt. I guess it's better than nothing. Speaking of minuscule improvements, we return to Alhaitham to test out the knowledge capsule, because nothing says fighting capabilities like fighting some mushrooms. After all this time, we finally get a chance to have a proper battle, and even though we're technically fighting alongside Alhaitham, we neither get a trial run of him, nor do we, well, even see him on the battlefield with us. So many of these battles would have been such a good opportunity to do trial characters alongside our main team, but hey, what do I know? Though I suppose they would have had to make the battle a little bit more challenging if they were to do that. With Act 1 complete, it's time to return to Sumeru for Act 2. Like I said in Arlecchino only, even though this is one of my favorite acts in Sumeru, it's very lacking in any sort of fights, or, well, anything with playable characters, so we walk with Dunyarzad twice, finally meet Nahida, do a lot of thinking, and have one single battle. While that battle took longer with Arlecchino, it still didn't take much effort. We find out Nilo is the dream host, enjoy a beautiful cutscene, and finish Act 2. Starting Act 3, we put Sataria through some mental turmoil before meeting someone that Wanderer is very familiar with. Escaping from the doctor, we return to Gandharvaville to find Tainari, but instead find some mercenaries. So if you watched my last video, the one about the challenge accounts, you might be wondering how that's going. The answer? Well, we'll talk about that in more detail later, but the short version is not very good. With the mercenaries handled, we find Kale, who informs us that Tainari already left. Cool. Luckily though, on our trip to find Tainari, we find Nahida Catherine. Wow, I guess we're recapping his trauma a few times in this video, huh? Sorry, Wanderer.
If only that which beats within my chest wasn't a filthy mortal heart. Oh, great and merciful God, please grant me forgiveness and salvation.
Wait, is this play about us?
If the rumor is true that Catherine is actually connected to Sandrome, do you think she got mad at Dottore for ruining one of her puppets? Also, the fact we have a possible puppeteer harbinger, but Dottore was the one experimenting on Scaramouche? Sure, why not? After switching POV with Nahida long enough to get jump scared by the weekly boss I avoid like the plague, we find ourselves with Tainari. Moving right along, at Tainari's suggestion we head towards the desert, finding ourselves in Caravan Rebat. Who else do we find? Alhaitham, which also means another follow the leader task. I wonder, what's the fight to follow the leader ratio in Sumeru? And while on the topic, what's the fight to thinking ratio? We join Alhaitham and head to the desert, meet Sino and Candace, and then fight one of the most annoying enemies in all of Teyvat. I really like how these just didn't exist until Inazuma, so they decided to punish us by putting them everywhere. That said, I've gotten a little used to fighting them, at least on my main account, since I spent way too much time in Resin in Slumbering Court for Albedo and Kokumi. Have I gotten good artifacts? Well, no, but that's not important. Speaking of my main account, the other day I got a comment saying, "I can tell you must be new to Genshin." Oh my god, that humbled me so bad. Mind you, I have been literally playing this game semi-regularly since 1.3. With the monsters defeated, we talk to Sino, meet Isak, wrap up Act 3, and head straight into Act 4. Genuinely, is there anything we're supposed to do during this part? I feel like I just stand around or run in circles. Even going to areas like with the footprints doesn't really do anything to speed it up. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. We return to the village and opt to join Dia on our trip to Caravan Rebat. There, we get led into another fight. Back on the topic of things I need to do, we're right in the middle of the second half banners, meaning Inazuma Chronicled Wish. Obviously, if you saw my last video, I'm having issues with my reroll accounts, but I was able to get like a third of them out of jail, so I'm planning on just throwing money at those accounts as needed for characters. Having bested the ambushers, we return to the village and go with Alhaitham to the abandoned hospital. I know I've been doing a lot of yapping in this portion of the video, but honestly, these are the only fights we get in Sumeru, so. Meanwhile, with Kanich, I'll have to see if I can get back into his solo account to pull for cons or his weapon, or if I'll just have to start from zero with a new account for him. As for Raiden, well, Archons only has a solid single 10 pull, I think, so I don't know how lucky I'll be with getting her weapon or a constellation, but it's worth a try. Speaking of wishing, I recently lost the 50-50 on my main account at 86 pity, and it was honestly a weak ruiner. I was trying for Navia and was planning to go for Escoffier after, but I ended up just holding on to my guarantee until Skirk. I know Skirk will do best on a team with Escoffier and St. Lally, but well, I don't have either of them. I saw this graphic that was like, current must-have characters in Genshin, and I literally only have Farina on my main account. I either lost the 50-50 or prioritized my other accounts over my main account and missed the banner. On that note, if anyone has any suggestions for challenges or videos I can do on my main account, definitely share them in the comments because, oh my, that account is dusty and sad. If you've been waiting on my Discord server, you'll want to look out for my next video. I'm super excited for the next video, not just because of that, but because it's been one that I've been wanting wanting to do for such a long time. As you'll see, I had a very tough time with the challenge, which is also why it took so long. I think it was worth it though. Speaking of tough times, lately I've been thinking about the fact that despite it being almost a year since I started my channel, I really haven't figured out time management or even energy management. I have chronic fatigue, among other things, so I have frequent days where just leaving my bed to edit or record gameplay is really tough. That's something I really enjoy with Archons only, because there's so much to do that doesn't require a lot of time or effort, so I'm able to do pretty low effort recordings on it and feel like, okay, well, I accomplished something today. Unrelated, but on the topic of my challenges, I cannot express how excited I am to finish Arlecchino and this challenge. I really want to do a video rotation of like Challenge A Part 1, Challenge B Part 2, Archons Only, Challenge C Part 1, Challenge A Part 2, and so on, if that makes any sense. I feel like it'll mix things up for me more and give me more ability to get through challenge runs. Obviously that assumes that I can free my accounts from jail, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I also might take a few weeks off anyways in the late summer or early fall just to film and edit a ton, because I've mentioned I do have a trip coming in the late fall, and I'd very much like to minimize how much I work during that, especially because the trip I have coming up in June, I'll probably be working throughout. Despite failing miserably at this with Arlecchino, we managed to successfully unlock the 3 Dendro monuments alone with Wanderer. What he lacks in height-related speed, he makes up for with the ability to, well, fly. After investigating the hospital, we return to the village and go for another walk with Sino. Unfortunately, there are 3 guarantees in life: death, taxes, and having to travel an insanely long distance for a single portion of an Archon quest in Genshin Impact. Finally arriving at the edge of the desert, we head inside the domain. I may have struggled immensely at these puzzles with Arlecchino, but, well, it could have been worse with Wanderer, so I'll take my victories where I can get them. All we really do is fight mushrooms and then fight the elevator, so, for my own dignity, we'll skip it. Having cleared the domain, we scare some academia folks, return to the village, and complete Act 4. Act 5, as I've mentioned previously, is obscenely long. A whole lot of the act is just joining different playable characters in preparation for the big Save Nahida mission. For example, we talk to Candace, tag along with Alhaitham to the Eremites camp, and then head to Caravan Rebot with Sino to set up Ramon's crew for fake arrest. Wow, one sentence and I cut down on like half an hour of the story quest. Moving along, we sort of fight Ramon's crew, emphasis on sort of, and head back to Caravan Rebot to meet up with Dia. We meet up with Tainari, find out Dotori has been there, but already left, and cue another follow the leader task. Returning to Paradise DI, we get to participate in an actually good fight, this time with the Fatui agents. If you keep tabs on my community posts, recently I made a poll asking how long you guys would tolerate a video being, since I've gotten 100% exploration in both Mondstadt and Dragonspine on my Archons Only account. I'll be honest, I didn't expect the results. While I'm absolutely happy to oblige, I genuinely cannot think of what I could possibly talk about for that length of time. I suppose if you have any topics you'd like me to discuss or think I could discuss at length, feel free to comment it. I might just make a wheel and randomize topics and see how long I can talk about them. Obviously those videos will be a rare occurrence, and for my first one, I'm already planning to talk about the trip that I have in June. I'll be seeing Stray Kids on their tour and making a proper trip out of the whole adventure, so I'll talk about that concert and the trip itself. My poor phone storage.
Ah, you've seen my affection for her.
That should be me.
Leaving the newly electric-type Tainari with Hypatia, we head to Sumeru City to get the full plan started. Step 1, sneak into Azar's office. Step 2, get caught by Azar. Step 3, go insane. Get thrown on confinement. Mission success. Having much better luck than I did with Arlecchino, we find the spot to connect with Nahida much faster, and of course we have to lock in for the brief time of actually getting to hear Lumine speak.
We're here to rescue you. Are you alright? You should have been angry ages ago.
Switching POV, we finally get a trial character. This time it's Nilou, but we don't have anything to fight. Yeah, that figures. Next, we get a trial of Walmart Nahida. We get a playable NPC, but it's too much to ask for a trial Alhaitham or a trial Sino. Finally freed thanks to Dia, it's time to meet up with Nahida and for Wanderer to fight, well, himself. Relatable. So this is a long domain and an equally long fight, and since the entire challenge is about Wanderer, it's only right to include it in full. Circling back to my challenges, what comes next? Obviously Archons Only is going to be a long-term challenge, and if I had known the Archons were going to be rerunning on every single banner going forward, I would have made it free to play to be more of a challenge. But whatever, I guess. And then obviously we have other solo run challenges, but as we know, those accounts are kind of up in the air. I got my Gaming account back, but so far the rest of my accounts are still locked. For now, I'll probably hold off on pulling new challenge accounts for a while, at least until I work through the accounts that I have and hopefully regain access to. From what I've read, having any sort of transaction will help with retrieving accounts if it gets locked too, so going forward I'll probably just spend money to get the characters. When I first started my channel, I was prioritizing fully free-to-play because well, I wasn't making money off my videos. But now that I am, I'm more willing to spend the money for the challenges. Probably not what I did with Archons only, though. With that in mind, I've actually gotten almost all of the Inazuma Chronicled Wish characters on accounts. Not intentionally, but it is what it is. Currently, I'm working on Shiori, and she'll probably go up after Skirk, but I also ended up getting Ito, Yaimiko, and Kazuha on 3 separate accounts while trying to get Kokumi. I still want to try and get Kokumi though, since the absolute torture would be trying to fight her boss would definitely prove entertaining. Well, for you guys at least. After getting Skirk and Dahlia, I'll probably pause on getting new solo character accounts until Nodecry comes out in September. That way I can finish Arlecchino, Wanderer, and Muulani, as well as hopefully finish either Kenichi, Farina, or Mizuki if I get any or all of those accounts back. Beyond that, for new challenges, excluding the Inazuma ones because I already mentioned them, maybe just focusing on the accounts I can access? Maybe Xiao? I also have that random account with both Xiao and Shenhua that could be like Adepti only, but I don't know what I would do with that challenge. Maybe 100%ing everything, but not like achievements and TCG because that alone is a lot and I don't want to do it more than once. Regardless, the next video is going to be Gaming Only Part 1, which will be the usual Mondstadt through Inazuma. Then I'm thinking I'll do Skirk Only as the next new challenge with Arlecchino and Fontaine, and then Muulani Part 2 falling somewhere around those two. Beyond that, if I can get my child account back, I'd like to make him my next challenge after Skirk, since, well, it's only right. But if not, I'll probably do Chiori and then Dahlia. Let me know what you guys want to see. I don't mind either way. Like I said earlier, I'm definitely looking forward to finishing my current challenges too. I get a ton of comments for a new Muulani video, but I'm torn if I want to do Sumeru and Fontaine to get it up sooner, or if I should wait until I get Natlan done with Arlecchino and then have Muulani's next video just be Sumeru through Natlan. I could do just a short video of Kenichi and Inazuma as well, since it's pre-recorded, but I never got to finish Sumeru with him, so I don't know. I don't really love doing whole videos for one nation with these challenges, this video being an exception because I have 2 story quests and the interlude quest, because Arlecchino by itself works as more of a recap, and we only need one of those on this channel. Like I mentioned, if I have to, I can just pull Kenichi on another account and just awkwardly redo it. Speaking of Arlecchino, I am very excited to do a full challenge video compilation. I plan to completely redo the voiceover, just recapping fights and stuff, but I have not watched any of my previous challenge videos since uploading them, so my reaction to my terrible use of Arlecchino in battle will be something. It's still so humbling that my first video became my most popular because I was so unconfident in recording voiceovers, and that whole video took me like a month to edit, and I really had no idea how to do challenge runs beyond videos I had watched. So yeah, it'll definitely be something. Regardless, I think my biggest what if will be if I get my accounts back. I don't know when I'll be able to update on those, so I'll probably just post in my community tab or on Discord once I open it, which, like I said, look forward to Gaming Only for the announcement of the Discord, and I'll just hope for the best. Who knows, maybe Hoyoverse will fix the issue by then. After all the negative, I did the absolutely most sane thing I could do, and I enjoyed some aggressive retail therapy. I got a new iPhone. I've been rocking the iPhone 12 since it came out, and honestly, the only reason I upgraded was because it's super glitchy now, and I wanted more storage on my phone. Plus, I didn't have to pay for my upgrade, so a win's a win. I don't usually upgrade very often because I get concerningly attached to my phone as if it has feelings, and I hate trading them in, but I also like, you know, functional phones. Maybe now I can download Genshin on my phone again and at least do my dailies and collect my crops in the teapot while I'm away from home on my poor Archons Only account. My new phone comes with a free pair of those Meta glasses, and honestly, I tried them out at Best Buy the other day, and they're super cool. I have to wait a month before I can get them, but I am very excited for them. Maybe I can try using them to vlog occasionally. With Rukudavada erased from Urban Soul, we return to Gandharvaville, tie up most of the loose ends, and finish Act 5. With Sumeru complete, it's now time to start Kari Bear. Since this video is going to be up prior to my Arlecchino video, I might just combine Kari Bear with Fontaine for Arlecchino and make this the more detailed recap. Yap enjoyers, rejoice. Besides, Kari Bear is comparatively short. Also, I did this midway through in version of Genesis because I honestly forgot, so we're just pretending that I went straight into it after Act 5 for continuity purposes. Just don't look too closely at my levels. We arrive in Port Ormos and meet the Postmaster? The Portmaster? Postmaster? Anyways, he delivers us a letter that was addressed to next to small white-haired talking fairy, which I mean, yeah, that sounds like it's for us. The letter, it turns out, is from Kaya, who's currently in Sumeru and hoped to meet up with us at the tavern. After waiting until the following afternoon, we find Kaya drinking on the job. That tracks. Kaya explains to us a bit of his history and origins, including the fact he's from Conria. In other breaking news, water is wet. If you've heard the story of Bloody Mary, or maybe Hanako, or even Beetlejuice, we have a new version of that in Genshin. Say Conria enough times, times, and there's a good chance Dainsleif will appear. If only that applied outside of Genshin. Dainsleif joins our reunion with Kaya to inform us that Kaya isn't just related to any old Conrian, but he's actually a descendant of the founder of the Abyss Order. Then again, he also wears what looks like an Abyss Mage, so I guess actions speak louder than, origins? That sounded better in my head. Moving on, after Kaya leaves and Dane gets his drink, we join Dainsleif in investigating the Loom of Fate, which our twin first mentioned to him in Sumeru. Our investigation leads us to a small field, which Dainsleif says is familiar. So what do? We break into the house. Though, I guess it's not technically breaking in if we just moved the leaves to the side. That's not legal advice. Don't go into huts that aren't yours. Inside, we find a bed, an old medicine bowl, and a broken mirror that totally won't be significant later. Wow, usually when we enter these places, we get a precious chest. Bummer. Outside, a bunch of slime start to congregate, so that means it's time for a battle. Now, I knew we had to light this bonfire with the quest, so using my absolutely massive brain, I coaxed these slimes over here to start the fire. That said, I don't entirely trust Genshin. You know, somehow I should have seen that coming. I'm sure if I opted to waste my time and go get the portable waypoint from Mondstadt's reputation, I could probably pull this off without help, but we're definitely not doing that. Amber, get it together. Well, Amber lost her privileges, so now Chevreuse can light the bonfire. What better way to light a bonfire than a gun, right? Talking to Paimon over the bonfire, she asks if we've gotten tired of her. Knowing exactly how everyone would respond, Genshin chooses our opinion for us. We decide to threaten the Heavenly Principles, because that always works out so well for us, before Paimon opts to take the first watch. I don't know how much I trust Paimon to protect us in an emergency, but I also enjoy sleep, so I'll leave it up to fate. Get it? Because we're investigating the Loom of... Never mind. The next morning, Dainsleif wakes us up, which is very refreshing after being woken up by Paimon so many times.
Tear stains.
Yes, tears of joy seeing you. Dainsleif lets us sleep some more, and eventually we wake up realizing Paimon is missing. Hearing noise in the hut, we decide to do the perfectly reasonable, totally safe thing and go check it out. I do really love them removing the Paimon menu because we don't have her around. It was a really cool concept. Unfortunately, I had to break immersion briefly to kick Chevreuse off the team. I will literally never be able to take this man seriously after all the memes. Sorry for clowning your ancestors, Kaya. We meet the interactive map's best friend, who, after bullying us a little bit, lets us into his house. Inside the house, we find him facing a bed with a hilly churl on it. Sure. Okay, honestly, nothing surprises me anymore. I'm sure the next thing he'll tell us is that it's his kid or something.
He is Kari Bear, my illegitimate son.
Anyways, we find out the man in question is named Eid. Editing Ren here again. I mispronounced his name the entire quest. Oops. And his son Kari Bear is an example of the fate of those who were mixed blood living in Conria at the time of the Cataclysm. Eid, however, is a pure-blooded Conrian, and because of that, deemed the greater sinner and cursed to immortality like Dainsleif. Having plenty of time and nothing to lose, Eid has been attempting to find a cure for his son with a potion made from ingredients found in Sumeru. He asks us for assistance in tracking down some Sumeru roses and Calpalata lotus, and despite knowing exactly where they, usually are, I somehow ended up running in circles trying to find them. A humbling amount of time later, we find the ingredients, and after picking some questionable looking mushrooms, we make the medicine paste. I do wish we could have kept one of these mushrooms as a quest item, but I can see why that wouldn't have worked continuity-wise. There's one final step to complete the medicine. Go and get the blessing at the Statue of the Seven. We could have probably just gone and, I don't know, found Nahida, but trying to leave the area prompts us to turn back because we don't have Paimon, so awkwardly yelling at the statue it is. With the medicine complete, we return to Kari Bear. Shocking nobody, well, maybe one person, the medicine doesn't work. To stop Eid from a full-blown crash out, we remind him he can just try again. Most medicines require more than one dose, right? And besides, you have all the time in the world, quite literally. Eid has us go get some water from the waterfall at a very specific time so we can grow some more inverted colored mushrooms. This time though, when we go to the statue, we spot Kari Bear walking into the chasm. Well, that's probably an issue. Chasing after him, we realized it was not Kari Bear, just like Hilly Churl B or something. Despite that, we decide to keep following it and end up coming across a strange foggy passway where we used to cut through to the chasm. What's more, we find additional Hilly Churls inside the domain, but these ones are praying. Alright, that one's new. Speaking of new things, I don't ever think I've been attacked by these hilly churls. I thought they usually ignore you. I guess you learn something new every day. Also, this video got even more delayed than it was supposed to be, and the reason is honestly humbling. So hurricane season starts in June, and every year right around the end of May, a ton of work starts to prepare the trees and stuff for it, I guess. Anyways, it was almost an entire week of non-stop tree trimming, and of course they parked the wood chipper right next to my window. Not only did I get a man in the tree trimmer box right next to my window, but the chipper woke me up every single morning. Ironically, the children upstairs haven't even woken me up lately. They are the first children that have lived above me that actually go outside and play. That said, I am very much dreading summer vacation to begin. Maybe they'll go to summer camp or something. In my last video, I mentioned how I was going to spend a weekend with friends and clear my head, and I did. We actually went to an amusement park, and I learned two things. I am definitely an adrenaline junkie, and amusement parks hurt when you're older than like 18. We went on this one ride that does a loop and is pretty fast, and oh my god, I got thrown around like a rag doll. As fun as it was, I ended up not going on a second time because of how badly it threw my head around, and it kept crunching my poor ears. I later saw on the sign that it suggests removing all earrings, and yeah, that would have made it far less painful. I still had fun though. Also, those boat swing rides, usually referred to as a pirate ship or something, are actually kind of embarrassing because you awkwardly have to hold eye contact with the people across from you the whole time. Unfortunately, they were pretty strict with recording on rides, so I didn't get any footage for you guys, but when my friends and I go to Korea, we plan to go to Everland and Lotte World, and dress up in school uniforms, as the tradition goes. And I'll probably have a vlog camera by that point, or at least the meta glasses like I mentioned, so I can vlog a bit. I love that we have to wait for these doors to open for his hat to get through. Sounds about right.
When I saw that thing, my heart was instantly at peace.
You can make a religion out of this, and maybe conquer the world as well.
Returning from the domain, we discovered that the new dose of medicine, after having been exposed to the creepy crystal thing calling itself a sinner, at least that's what I assume, worked better than the original dose, and Kari Bear awakens. However, understandably, he freaks out at having become some sort of monster. Eid warns Kari Bear to never take off his mask, and claims we've entered a fairy tale, which is why he's such a strange creature. Hey, I'm not in the business of scaring children, so whatever you say. Eid, convinced the mysterious voice is what saved Kari Bear, decides to return to the domain to go pray. We warn him that the voice identified itself as a sinner, but Eid decides that we're wrong. Alright, your funeral, I guess. Though, I suppose you can't actually die, so. Despite that, we still opt to return to the domain with him to act as bodyguard. I'm sure leaving the newly awakened and scared monster child alone won't have horrifying consequences. Returning to where we heard the voice, we find absolutely nothing. He decides it's not that big of a deal and he'll find the deity again one day. Back at his house, we find Kari Bear has disappeared, and the mirror shattered on the ground. Though it was shattered when we first saw it, so I guess that's not all that surprising. Horrified, Eid realizes Kari Bear must have taken off his mask, and we accompany him on a frantic search in the rain for his son. Stumbling on some forest rangers, we have to prevent Eid from fighting them for their disgust over hilly churls. Eventually, we find out which way Kari Bear might have gone and continue searching. At the edge of the cliff, we spot Kari Bear. After a really depressing cutscene with some phenomenal voice acting, we pass out and awaken at Eid's house. Eid reveals his true identity.
My real name is Clotar. Clotar Alberich.
Where have we heard that name before?
Descendant of the Abyss Order's founder.
Oh. Okay, when I included that you could make a religion out of this, that was a joke. Clotar also refers to us as the prince. Confused, we pick up the mirror again and discover our sibling in the reflection. Yeah, that explains a lot, actually. However, at the discovery that we're experiencing our twins' memories from the creation of the Loom of Fate, we kind of start to crash out. Which, honestly, is understandable. Luckily, though, we're awoken by Dainsleif, and Paimon this time. Dainsleif explains how the nearby ley lines have been tampered with by the Abyss, and gives us a summary of what happened to Clotar after he founded the Abyss Order. In exchange, we tell Dainsleif and Paimon the story of what we witnessed, the memories of our twin that even Dainsleif didn't experience. After, we decide we need to dig into the field. What we find... Well, have you ever heard that sometimes certain mushrooms can tell investigators a body was buried nearby because of how the remains impact the soil? I have, because Violet loves true crime, and I watched the Apothecary Diaries. Well, that information proved to be useful now, as we found the bodies of Clotar and Kari Bear's mother. Off camera, of course. Dainsleif decides he needs some time to think, and we part ways. We complete the quest by hugging Paimon, and all I can say is Kari Bear was absolutely amazing. Anyone who disagrees is simply incorrect. Having completed our tasks in Sumeru for now, it's time to go start the story quests in Inazuma. But at the time of starting them, I needed to do some leveling up to reach AR 40 so I could unlock the story quests. Time to go cry while I fight the EM Blight Drake. Alright, we hit AR 40, leveled up Wanderer, and unlocked the story quest, so let's head back to Inazuma. Arriving to bully the omnipresent god statue, we find Toma, Kamaji, the guy we delivered a letter to for Chisato, and a guy named Ippei. Despite what I said at the end of Inazuma, this quest actually shares the consequences of the events that occurred during the Inazuma Archon quest, including the fact that thunderstorms around Inazuma have gotten closer to the nation, and that the Shogun is, doing the exact opposite of what we suggested and is closing herself off to reflect. Additionally, thanks to this guy, the Kujo clan is in chaos and they need a new leader. Kamaji decides to find someone by the name of... Actually, that's a really long name, so let's have him say it.
Takatsukasa Susumu.
What he said. Anyways, Paimon suggests we bring the Shogun out in public so people stop worrying, and we head to find Yaimiko to get a pass permit. With our pass permit in hand, we head inside the temple or whatever, and find the Raiden Shogun pacing aimlessly. Perfect creation, by the way. Meanwhile, we're just the failed prototype. Pulling us into a much brighter plane of euthymia, we explain our thought process to A, and she agrees to take a walk with us. Is this what they call mother and son bonding? Apparently not, because Wanderer wants nothing to do with this, and it's Lumine walking with A instead. Well, we tried. A mentions how much the market has changed, which, yeah, centuries will do that. Though, to be fair, it's even changed since I did this quest on my main account with the addition of the hot springs. Okay, so if I want my Archon's only account to be close to canon, I should be dirt broke, because apparently none of the Archons have any Mora. Our first stop on the walk is at Tomoki's stall. After he gets over his initial shock of the most powerful person in Inazuma, he explains that he sells dango milk. Honestly, he could probably put up a sign saying Raiden Shogun approved, and get plenty of people trying it. Then again, there's an equally good chance people will just call him a liar if they weren't here to actively witness A walking around, so I guess time will tell. Our next stop is the Yai Publishing House, because A wants to learn more about the business that Yaimiko is always talking about. The business in question? Well, publishing fanfiction about not Yaimiko and not A, among other things. No wonder he's so apprehensive on letting her read anything. We're directed to the bestsellers shelf and tasked with the decision of what book to suggest to A, which proves difficult because A never had middle school English class. Lucky for her, I took advanced placement literature in school. It was English literature, so not quite light novels, but, you know, tomato tomato. Our options for books to suggest consist of Life Made Me a Fighter When I Just Wanted to Be a Writer, which is a Liyue martial arts book about the protagonist who wants to be a writer but is just incredibly overpowered and forced to be involved in fights. The chaotic epic that is The Tale of My Youthful Love Life, about a very mediocre man and 7 beautiful women, which is pretty much 80% a fantasy harem anime lately. Or Shogun Almighty Reborn as Raiden with Unlimited Power, which is exactly what it sounds like. What a lineup. We have a little mother and son photo shoot and then decide to offer... Well, it doesn't matter what we offer to her. After hearing our book suggestion, A begins to consider everything she's seen on our walk. Despite trying to create an eternal, unchanging nation, both the foods and stories have changed with time, giving undeniable truth that change is inevitable. She thanks us for inviting her out for a walk, and we suggest a photo to commemorate the day. Though A doesn't actually know what a photo is, but honestly, at this point, it would be more surprising if she did. We find a good spot for the photo, and after explaining what a photo is, and how to pose, we properly take a picture for her. Well, after taking some more unofficial photos with A and Wanderer. Fascinated by the concept of a photo, imagine introducing her to Netland technology, she begins to very deeply question the concept of photography. With A learning how different Inazuma has become despite the Vision Hunt decree and her attempts at eternity, she's both satisfied and a little embarrassed at her lack of understanding towards new experiences today. However, we suddenly hear Ippei yelling for Kamaji, so we opt to go investigate. Ippei, after getting over his initial shock of A being with us, explains that Kamaji was supposed to meet with the head of the Takusukasa clan in regards to the takeover of the Tenryo Commission after the events involving the previous Kujo clan head during the Inazuma Archon quest. Ippei is nervous that something went wrong during negotiations, but afraid to interrupt if everything's fine. A decides that with us going to check on things for Ippei, they would be unlikely to blame anyone for interruptions, and it's better safe than sorry. With location on the map, it's time for a battle. All I remembered about this battle is that I struggled a lot with it on my main account, so I'm not exactly thrilled with the solo challenge. Sure, we get Raiden as a trial character, but that doesn't count. I feel like I've run out of things to yap about in this video, but also this video is ending up much longer than I anticipated. Oh well, you guys did say you wanted 2-hour videos or longer. Speaking of that, I saw someone say it's essentially like watching a stream VOD, which, yeah, pretty much. I don't really have the ability to stream at the moment because where I live is really loud, and my mic isn't really ideal for streaming because I always have to edit the volume in editing. One day though. But for now, we can make these longer videos, and the ones where I 100% nations on Archons only, into, like, background videos. When I was with my friends, we had, like, a Genshin community deep dive on the TV, and all 3 of us were locked in, but also on our phones. I kind of imagine my longer videos being enjoyed that way. Speaking of Archons only, I realized recently that it's more challenging than I anticipated figuring out what to theme videos on. I mean, sure, I have my long videos planned, but just for shorter videos, I can't imagine it would be very exciting just to see me repeatedly fight the same bosses. I have some ideas for future videos on that account, like trying to get a bunch of achievements in 24 hours, a video with Violet and Midya of them helping me do the co-op achievements, things like that. But otherwise, I'm struggling a little bit. On a very different topic, I'll use this end section to share my unsolicited opinion on this story quest. quest. I know a lot of people heavily disliked the story quest, but honestly, I really liked it. Then again, I also liked Inazuma's Archon quest, well, mostly, so I guess take that with a grain of salt. I think A, someone revered by her people as their almighty shogun, walking amongst her people just shopping and learning about how much has changed despite her attempts to preserve the past, was really a great addition to Inazuma and A's character. Additionally, we get to see a side of her that's far more gentle, relaxed, and frankly, quite sheltered than we saw during the primary Archon quest. This distinction of A's personality versus the clearly frustrated Raiden shogun also sets up for the conflict that occurs in her story quest Act 2. We also get to see more clarity of how Inazuma looks now post-Vision Hunt decree. If I were to have a complaint about anything, it's that I would have liked to see this immediately after the final battle in the Archon quest, as opposed to a separate, mostly optional story quest, kind of like what Sumeru does with Act 5. If anything, I feel like Ayaka's story quest was not necessary to occur within the Archon quest timeline. Koimiya's at least did provide additional context to the Sakoku decree, so I won't argue with hers occurring when it did. I'm sure Ayaka's story quest was dropped in the middle of the Archon quest because she was such a hyped character, and probably as a method to increase the bond between the Traveler and Ayaka, as pretext to the start of Inazuma Act 2, but I still think it was unnecessary, and her story quest definitely could have occurred after the Archon quest, and Raiden's Act 1 would have been perfect to put as the ending of Act 3. But then again, that's just my opinion. Speaking of opinions, I saw the other day a take on Twitter that shockingly was really good. Need people to start acknowledging that some of us actually like Genshin and not all of us are forced or held at gunpoint to play it. Like, I genuinely enjoy this game, I don't really care. I feel like lately in the gacha sphere, it has been one bad take after another, so I try my best just to stay in my own bubble of VTubers, anime, and pretty art, but this tweet, absolute cinema. I don't feel like there's anything that restricts me from complaining about Genshin, if I have complaints, like you all just heard, but my thing is, I genuinely still really enjoy this game. If I didn't, well, I wouldn't play it, and if I disliked or outright hated it, I also wouldn't talk about it for that matter. Sure, the bar is very low for me to enjoy a game, but I just never understood people who hate a game, or anything for that matter, but continue to talk about it regularly. Then again, I barely have enough brain capacity to think about things I actually like, let alone things that I don't. So maybe it's a me thing. This also isn't in regards to people who, for example, watch Genshin content creators but don't personally play anymore, because that's completely valid and I totally get it. I mean, Midya doesn't really play Genshin anymore, but she still watches my videos. At least, she tells me she does. Back to the battle at hand. I'm gonna be honest, I was right. This final battle was rough. The biggest issue is the fact the Ronin's attacks have such a large AoE, making it hard to dodge, and Wanderer's skill is most effective when we have space to move around. As such, we struggled. A lot. Finally successful in only one attempt. Surprisingly, we head in to investigate. Not so thrilled by the fact this so-called meeting was in a random hideout guarded by enough Ronin to fill a spiral abyss floor, A demands an explanation from both sides, starting with the head of the Takasukasa clan. He claims they're just discussing minor issues and totally needed the security of this secluded location. Unconvinced, A turns to Kamaji. Kamaji explains that he originally thought this meeting was for negotiations, but all the Takasukasa clan wanted was a written confession from the Kujo clan of every crime committed since the inception of the Vision Hunt decree. Crimes he doesn't deny. However, the same document glazes the Takasukasa clan as the heroes that stood against the corruption, which, considering we have never heard of them until now, after everything is over, well, I'm less than convinced. A point blank shares that she could not care less about the dispute, and that there's only one test to decide the Tenryo commissioner. Defeat her in a duel. Anyone who does will be appointed. Wait, does that mean we should be the commissioner? Takasukasa, shocking nobody, wants nothing to do with the battle, but Kamaji accepts the offer. While this cutscene was great, can you imagine how cool it would have been if he ended up receiving a vision at this moment? Thinking about it, did we only get to see people gain visions in Sumeru onward? Off the top of my head, all I can think of is the girl from the Aranara quest line, and, well, Wanderer. Considering we've seen NPCs with visions, and the Kujo clan was partially behind the Vision Hunt decree, it would have been kind of poetic. After shelving the decision of the Kujo clan's punishment, A leaves Takasukasa with the responsibility to take care of the wounded Kamaji, and a warning to avoid attempting to deceive her in the future. Outside, we get another clear difference between Raiden and A, again, proving a pretty clear setup for Act 2. A also shares how, despite how much has changed in the little day-to-day aspects of life, the will and determination of man remains consistent regardless of time. While the Kujo clan will not be allowed to carry on in charge of the Tenryo Commission, A admits that they were not solely the ones who have made mistakes in the past. She shares that she'll still let Raiden rule Inazuma since the threat of erosion doesn't just disappear, but she plans to do what needs to be done. Though, that has nothing to do with with us because we won't be back to do Act 2 on this account. So Wanderer personifies the meme of putting the old lady back in her room before we return to Yaimiko to return the pass permit and end the quest. With the completion of Raiden's Act 1 story quest, it's time to move on to our final requirement to unlock Inversion of Genesis, Kazuha's story quest. Kazuha's story quest begins over in Byakko Plain, where we're confronted by a samurai who insists on battling us. After defeating the samurai, he asks if we know Kazuha. When we try to pry into why he needs to find Kazuha, the samurai leaves in a huff. Well, that was strange. We decide to go try to find Kazuha to inform him of the quick-to-anger samurai looking for him with a suspiciously similar fighting style. As it turns out, we weren't the only ones looking for him. Sure, Kazuha stopped the Muso no Hitotachi, but we literally defeated the Raiden Shogun. No fanfare for us? We find out Kazuha is visiting the Tenryu Commission, and after hearing about him from some local NPCs, we head to Inazuma City. At the Tenryu Commission headquarters, we find Kazuha with Kamaji. Wow. Long time no see. I guess you healed quickly. Kamaji explains to us that in an attempt to resolve and ease the tensions that have built up over the years, the Shogun and the Tri-Commission wish to restore the honor of the Kaidahara name. Since we got a very TLDR version of Inazuma's past in the Archon quest, Kamaji explains the history with the bladesmiths that served the Shogun directly, including the Kaidahara clan. However, some of the bladesmiths revolted and fled to Snezhnaya, which I'm sure has nothing to do with us. Right, Wanderer? Anyways, the Kaidahara and Kamisato clans were blamed for the revolt, but as it turns out, the Fatui were the ones who planned the whole thing. Anything you'd like to say, former Harbinger from Inazuma? Despite Kamaji offering Kazuha the ability to live in Inazuma City peacefully and end his wandering, Kazuha decides he would probably be bored at home. At least, I think he said that. Truly the king of flowery words. Regardless, Kazuha asks for time to consider the offer and finally decides to ask why we came to visit. It took a while, but well, that's not all that surprising for Kazuha. We explain the encounter we had with the strange samurai, and Kazuha opts to join us in investigating the situation. Up first, we head to the detective agency. Ryuji tells us that if the Tenryu Commission doesn't have any leads, the next best thing would be to see if our assailant is connected to a missing persons case involving a collector and a samurai from the Amanoma clan. It's better than nothing, so we head to the blacksmith to investigate. At the blacksmith, we get a backstory about the Raiden Gokuden, since this account obviously didn't do the Hues of Violet Garden event, which, for the record, was one of the best events. The old man shares that the missing samurai is his nephew Yuya. He also provides more context to the missing persons case, sharing that his nephew was supposed to get a gift for him from Nagato, the collector, but a fire broke out at the warehouse, and neither have been seen since. He guesses the gift in question would have been a rare weapon, and so Kazuha decides that Yuya seems to be the most likely suspect, though his uncle disagrees, saying he doesn't get into fights. Well, there's a first for everything. He also notes that while Yuya is calm-minded and wouldn't jump to fights, it's equally out of character to disappear without a word, so it's possible something else is influencing him. Next, we go talk to the Nagato family. We find out from his wife that Nagato, while initially a very normal avid collector, suddenly lost all restraint with his collecting and started borrowing money to pay for items, resulting in extreme debt and their household falling apart. On the day he went missing, his wife gave him an ultimatum to sell his collectibles to pay off the debts, or she divorces him and takes the children. I don't know, that sounds pretty fair to me. Apparently that worked, because he agreed to sell a few things, but then that same day the warehouse caught fire and both men disappeared. Somehow more confused than before, we decide we're still missing something and opt to go investigate the warehouse.
Wait. I hear something ominous in the wind.
Sure, whatever you say, bestie.
It felt very much like that ancient presence in Inazuma. The remnants of the Tatarigami.
The giant snake? Okay. Kazuha thinks that the Tatarigami energy influenced Nagato into becoming an obsessive hoarder and opts to open up the door to the warehouse. Unfortunately, the fire caused the entire warehouse to cave in, leaving another dead end. Kazuha suggests we follow the trail of the Tatarigami energy, so after a modified follow the leader, with the leader being this gross smoky energy, we eventually find some hilichurls. Congratulations to us, we finally get another battle, though this is now 2 fights, which is 1 more fight than we got in all of Act 2 of Sumeru. So, we find a letter stained with red. I'm sure it's just ink or something. From Nagato. He says in the letter that Yuya stole the blade from Nagato, wounded him, and set the fire, despite the fact Nagato had intended to sell him the blade outright. Kazuha speculates Nagato might be dead somewhere, so obviously our priority should be to find him and confirm. Oh. Okay. Sorry, Nagato. R.I.P., I guess. Kazuha speculates that Yuya might also be under the influence of Tatarigami, causing his sudden out-of-character and violent actions. We continue following the energy and eventually track him down. As it turns out, Yuya was the very same samurai that attacked us at the beginning of the quest. But Kazuha believes we're facing the blade? Excuse me? Actually, at this point, this feels very on brand for Inazuma. I'm sure the blade will talk to us next or something.
Many, many years ago, I was forged by a famed bladesmith of the Ishin tradition.
See what I mean? The, Blade goes on a tangent about its greatest regrets and the fact his bladesmith is the one who gave him a consciousness. You know, I used to question how people never seemed fazed by seeing Paimon, a floating talking fairy that has never appeared before, but now we have this talking blade with a consciousness, and so maybe basic logic just doesn't apply in Teyvat. To be fair, we're playing this challenge as a puppet, so I guess there's that. Moving along, the blade explains after its creator died, it left Snezhnaya and started towards Inazuma, by controlling the minds of random people throughout the trip. I guess logic still draws a line at the blade up and hopping away. It may be sentient, but it still lacks a nervous system. Or limbs, for that matter. Apparently, his whole journey was about trying to defeat the Raiden Shogun, so, like everyone else, he decided to track down the guy who parried the Musuno Hitotachi. You know, instead of the one who actually defeated the Raiden Shogun. Whatever. Anyways, it's time for a battle, and this time we get a trial Kazuha too. Not that we're using him, but I guess we benefit from the 2 Anemo characters on our team, so I won't say no to that. This script has been written over the course of several weeks, so the beginning of this script and now, a few things have changed, but I already recorded the first half when writing this half, so I'm just gonna leave it as is. Anyways, currently I did regain access to Mizuki only, so I'm working my way through Sumeru with her as well as with Mualani. I'm giving the rest of my accounts another 10 days of not touching them and seeing if it lets me in. Fingers crossed. I also recently started Kokumi only, and yeah, it's about what I expected. After being the surprisingly tanky, sword, he turns out to be a sore loser. After a very long tangent from the blade, Kazuha turns on therapist mode.
Are you trying to claim that I am helpless without you?
I mean, you are the one who said you needed Kazuha to fulfill your destiny, so... Kazuha points out the sword has 0 chance against Raiden since everything it's done to get to this point goes against Ishin arts, and not to mention that the sword has gotten weaker over the years. So, like, dull, I guess. I mean, lore speaking, we've gotten through the entirety of Teyvat so far with just a dull blade, so. Kazuha makes a bet with the sword, despite our concerns. The sword can try to possess Kazuha and see if it can actually still fight to prove it's still strong enough to defeat the Shogun. In exchange, he releases Yuya, but has him follow us to the domain. Who's the puppet now, right? We head into the domain, which is the same domain as last time, but since it's Kazuha's story quest, well, we only get trial Kazuha. I'll show it in more detail during Kazuha only, so for now, we'll skip most of it. After several fights, the sword loses its Tatarigami energy, and, well, let's just see how Paimon describes it, shall we?
Is this the same blade as before? It looks like a piece of junk!
Hey, she said it, not me. More enemies show up, and Kazuha uses his good old fillet blade to beat them up, which is kind of hilarious, I'm not gonna lie. After defeating the enemies, the sword finally realizes Kazuha was right, and in an attempt to make things right, releases Yuya with the hopes of a proper duel between samurai. We explain the situation to him, he's understandably frustrated, but agrees to the duel in hopes of making everything right again. We leave the domain, return to the beach, and Kazuha and Yuya have their duel. It's another Kazuha-only fight, but it's the final battle. So, what's my opinion of this quest? I do very much enjoy it, but I really wish the story they included in the Hues of Violet Garden event wasn't event locked and it was an interlude chapter or something, so we could have done it prior to this, because it adds so much necessary and additional context to the story quest. I absolutely loved that event quest, and I hate that it's locked behind a limited event. Typical of Genshin, I suppose, though. After the battle, the blade, I still feel goofy referring to a sword like a person, has finally truly learned the error in its ways, and wishes for us to visit the blacksmith. At the blacksmith, the old man is relieved to see Yuya is safe. We share all the events that occurred, and despite the absolute insanity of the story, he fully believes us. I guess he has the same mindset that we do, of just going with the flow, because there's no such thing as logic in Teyvat. We also find out from the old man that the detective agency found Nagato alive, so all's well that ends well. Kazuha reveals that the blade asked to control him for a brief moment, and despite Paimon's protests, he allows it. We get a cutscene of Kazuha and the blade, with the blade deciding to abandon its remaining consciousness to be reborn. Reforged? Kazuha, or well, Kazuha possessed by the blade, begins to get to work. If I say my thoughts on this scene, I'll probably get pelted by tomatoes. Or holy water, so I'll keep it to myself. Kazuha awakens, a new, not alive sword in hand, and shares the sword's fate, because technically speaking, while we, Wanderer, I guess, saw the scene, the Traveler and Paimon are still in the dark. To wrap up the quest, we return with Kazuha to the Tenryo Commission. Outside at the statue of the omnipresent god, we find Kamaji. Man, does he have anywhere else to go? There's gotta be better places to explore in Inazuma. Kamaji explains that Yuya probably won't be facing any criminal charges for what transpired, and Kazuha shows him the blade. He explains the blade was able to be recovered and restored through the events that transpired, but as a promise to the, blade, Kazuha plans to continue his wandering to study and pass on the Ishin arts, meaning he will not accept the offer from the shogunate. He decides that for now he'll remain with the Crux, completing the story quest. After nearly an hour and 23 pages of script, we have finally completed all the prerequisites, so now it's time to return to Sumeru to begin Inversion of Genesis. Paimon suggests we return to Sumeru to visit Nahida and see if we can pick her brain, and, Devat's brain, some more about our twin and the Descenders. On our way there, we stumble upon an academia scholar loudly arguing with the writer about Tatarasuna. Surprised hearing about that all the way in Sumeru, we decide to join the conversation, officially beginning Inversion of Genesis.
If only we knew where to find that traveler.
Lucky for you, like Danes live with Conria, when someone mentions us, we appear. Well, if it's relevant for us anyways.
Sorry, we don't get out much, so our social skills are kinda lacking.
You're talking to the Genshin Impact community. I fear most of us understand. Unfortunately for the two men, we admit we don't actually know that much about Tatarasuna, and approached them in hopes of learning what information they've collected. According to the scholar, his teacher chose the topic of Tatarasuna due to the mystery surrounding it and the lack of concrete information. The writer interrupts, trying to plug his book, well, the outline anyways, but at Akaba's suggestion, eases us into the information a little slower. Much appreciated. Akaba tells us that according to the records found in Tatarasuna, a man named Mikoshi Nagamasa created a fine blade, his words, but for unknown reasons destroyed the blade by throwing it into fire and killed his assistant named Katsuragi. The records also mention someone referred to as Kabukimono. Akaba explains how the word directly means eccentric stranger in Inazuma, before Sawada joins in saying how the Kabukimono lived in Tatarasuna for a while, before disappearing just prior to the events between Mikoshi and Katsuragi. Sawada, after yelling for impact or something, shares that he recently found out that the events with the individuals occurred over 400 years ago according to government records, and that the man in charge of the smelting industry was someone by the name of Niwa, who also went missing. Well, we definitely know that name. By providing more context of Niwa, Sawada explains why Kazua's story quest was a prerequisite, sharing that Niwa is a distant relative of the Kaidahara clan. Though, if we look at Kazuha and Niwa side by side, well, it may not be that distant. The most important information of all, though, is that the Kabukimono wasn't a human, but instead a puppet. Well, we know 2 living puppets from Inazuma, and we probably aren't discussing the acting archon of Inazuma right now. Putting everything together, Paimon, per usual, is a terrible liar, but lucky for us, the socially inept duo before us takes her at face value. Plus, Sawada is again more interested in plugging his book to us, this time actually handing us the outline, that we don't read, sorry. I read everything to do with Wanderer, and by default Tatarasuna, in my own time, but an hour into this video, we'll skip it. The same goes for the essay draft. If you haven't done this quest or want to read both parts, it's on the Genshin Wikia for this specific quest in Inversion of Genesis. I'll link it in the description. Despite claiming he believes an essay should be grounded in facts, Akaba follows up immediately by suggesting he make up a turf war between rival factions as being the baseline of the events. It's giving ChatGPT. While Akaba decides to return to the drawing board for his essay topic, we return to our primary goal at hand and leave the men to go find Nahida. While we stop to discuss the fact that the Kabukimono was definitely Scaramouche, who is locked up, we see the man of the hour. At least he's going towards where Nahida usually is, so that saves us some effort.
Nahida! Bad news. We just saw the balladeer strolling around in public. Did he escape or... Ah! It's him!
Nahida explains to us that she and Scaramouche made a deal that in exchange for his freedom, he would investigate Irminsul for her.
It's not every day you see people questioning the god of wisdom's judgment.
I mean, he's not wrong. After some, banter, with a violent undertone, between Paimon and Scaramouche.
Well, that escalated quickly.
We, for the record, remain silent. Nahida explains that she's willing to make a deal with anyone if it's worthwhile, specifically with the knowledge to be gained, referencing her deal with Tori. She also explains that after our battle, Scaramouche lacks the remaining power to be any sort of threat, or any value to the Fatui for that matter, meaning the deal is basically his only option, besides, death, either at the hands of Nahida or the Fatui, whereas for Nahida, knowledge is to be gained, and she doesn't have to go against her own personal principle of not harming living beings. Per Paimon, she and the Traveler are still opposed to this deal. I say the Traveler because if it was up to me personally, well, I wouldn't be the one questioning the God of Judgment's wisdom. Not my circus, not my clowns, Regardless, Nahida decides to declare today a trial run, sharing with us that this is primarily for our benefit, in hopes of Scaramouche finding information about our twin in Irminsul. As a former Harbinger and someone who was able to connect with Irminsul before, he would be most likely to find any information about the Descenders that would be available and relevant based on what he already learned via the Fatui. Nahida requests we supervise Scaramouche into Irminsul to keep an eye on him and squash any concerns, so in we go. Despite us being, well, the Traveler right now, we're accompanying Scaramouche, and, this is technically Wanderer's story quest, so I won't be cutting anything out.
Shut your beak, jailbird! No way a prisoner gets to be so smug!
I understand that prisoners have to put up with harassment from the guards, but right now, I'm on temporary release, so maybe you should think about backing off a little.
Sounds like a successful rendezvous.
Nahida is so unintentionally funny. I love her so much. Nahida warns everyone that Irminsul is not really the place to be more interested in bickering if we want to live, so a truce is declared.
All you have to do is keep your pretty eyes open and try not to fall behind.
We continue to follow Scaramouche, locations changing frequently, and eventually reach the center of Irminsul. While he begins his search within Irminsul, we have an internal chat with Nahida. Wow, having Paimon next to us wasn't enough. Now she has to be inside of our head too? Nahida admits that she hopes Scaramouche might find some answers for himself as well. And after we discuss with her both the memories we witnessed via Hypatia, as well as the story Akaba and Sawada are working on, we're interrupted by Scaramouche, who clocks the fact that we made an internal group chat without him, preventing us from learning more about Tatarasuna from Nahida. Well, for now at least. Suddenly, Scaramouche finds something he refers to as anonymous data, and we get teleported, sort of, to a building in Inazuma. We see two men, one identified as Niwa, discussing the Tatarasuna furnace. The flashback reveals that Niwa was suspicious of their new business partner, Escher. He admits that Escher did make vital changes to the manufacturing and forging methods at Tatarasuna, which focuses on crystal marrow, but these changes also resulted in an extreme increase in worker fatigue, casualties, and recently, a death, as well as an ominous black smoke. He notes that their friend, the Kabuki Mono, is planning to seek an audience with the Shogun for help, something only he can do. Escher finally reveals his true nature, stabbing Niwa and admitting he plans to use the Kabuki Mono to enter the furnace. But not only that, Escher reveals himself as the Fatui Harbinger we all know and, well, have mixed opinions on, the Doctor. He also shares that his grand experiment involves finding out what would happen if a hate-filled heart is placed into the Kabuki Mono. However, we find out from this flashback that Niwa never succumbed to hatred. Instead, he wished for the Kabuki Mono to know he and Nagamasa viewed him as one of them, never judging or fearing him for simply being a puppet. After Niwa dies from his injury, Dottore finally removes his disguise and contacts the Jester, confirming his task was completed and that he wishes to introduce a certain puppet to possibly become a Fatui member if useful. Returning to the present, Scaramouche has, well, honestly, a valid crash out. Nahida confirms the legitimacy of the memory and questions what this means to Scaramouche, now knowing the betrayal that he believed for hundreds of years was a lie fabricated by the Doctor for his twisted experiment. We opt to give him some time to process everything while we continue our internal dialogue with Nahida. Now knowing almost the entire story of the Tatarasuna incident, Nahida fills in the blanks of what happened after the flashback. The Kabuki Mono, using a device containing Niwa's heart, not that he knew that, went into the furnace and absorbed the filth caused by the smelting. He managed to survive, but questioned what was in the device, since it protected him. As for the answer, well, let's have Nahida explain that.
The mechanic answered. Niwa fled this place for fear of punishment, but he left you a gift. He said it's the one thing that you've been looking for. He took it straight from the chest of one of his innocent servants. The mechanic removed the withered heart from the device as he spoke.
Brutal. Horrified by the actions he believed led him to gaining the one thing he had longed for, as well as the belief that Niwa betrayed him, he threw the heart to the ground and left Inazuma with the Doctor. After a time skip, we opt to go check in with Scaramouche. He says there's no record of the Descenders in Irminsul, but informs us that the reason our twin had any records was probably because his first destination upon arriving was Conria, because, and I quote, the heavens responded to the summoning. Information not from Irminsul, but from the Jester. As it turns out, the Jester had been a royal mage in Conria, and lived with our twin for a while. After sharing that information, Scaramouche creates a barrier around the three of us, cutting out Nahida. He requests from us an answer to a question as payment for the information he shared. He takes our hand, and, cutting off Paimon now, speaks directly into our head. His question?
So tell me, in this world, is it possible to change the past?
Our hesitation was enough of an answer for him, and he suggests we leave Irminsul quickly, before sharing he doesn't believe we'll see each other again. Despite disappearing, we hear his final speech.
You know, I never did like insects. Hordes of the puny things swarming together can be a real nuisance. And I enjoy nothing more than to stamp them out like the pests they are. But if a colony of harmless ants isn't threatening anyone, I guess they deserve to be left alone. Luckily, everything can be set right. It's time to solve this once and for all.
With that, he fully disappears. We inform Nahida of what occurred, and she teleports us out of Irminsul into an inn, explaining that this is an emergency, but we can't help her with it, and we need to just stay here for now. We worry about how many people in Inazuma it would affect if Scaramouche successfully erases himself, since he was directly involved with the Raiden Gokuden. Unfortunately, we can't do anything now, so Paimon starts listing off food to distract herself. and continues doing so all night. Once we reach daytime, Paimon realizes she doesn't remember what she was doing. We mention the Balladeer, but she has no idea what we're talking about, revealing he was successful in erasing his existence from Irminsul. Horrified by the implications, we make a quick return to Inazuma. Our first stop is the blacksmith. We ask the old man to tell us the story of the Raiden Gokudun once more, and his story at least reveals to us that Kazuha, well, still exists in this timeline. We ask him to elaborate on what caused the decline of the Raiden Gokudun, knowing that in the original story, Scaramouche was involved. The old man shares that during the Tatarasuna incident, a brave swordsmith, along with Niwa, jumped in to stabilize the furnace, their attempt successful but costing both their lives. The swordsmith left behind an orphan son, who, resentful of the world, bore a grudge against the world and the shogun lasting for generations, until 100 years ago, his descendant took revenge on the Raiden Gokudun, murdering indiscriminately until he himself was killed by the Kaidahara and Kamisato clans, resulting in the Ishin arts surviving. From this story, we learn that despite Scaramouche's efforts to save Niwa and the others from the death they faced, death will find another way. Though, to be fair, we do have an entire 6-movie series explaining that entire concept. Up next, we head to the Yashiro Commission headquarters. Inside, we run into one of the housekeepers and ask about the siblings. Her story confirms to us that nothing has changed within the Yashiro Commission either. We decide to continue our travels around Inazuma, this time visiting Xavier outside of Tatarasuna. I never did the Tatara Tales quest on this account, so this is our first meeting with him. The dialogue in this section of the quest as a whole changes depending on what quests you've completed. If you've done Ayato's story quest, you get more dialogue with the housekeeper, and if you've done this, we skip the introduction of Xavier. After introductions, we ask Xavier to tell us what he knows about the history of Tatarasuna. Thanks to his history lesson, we learn that the doctor was still responsible for sabotaging the furnace, but there was never a Kabukimono connected to Tatarasuna. We've learned everything we needed to know. The Balladeer did successfully erase himself from history, but the only one affected was, well, him. We return to Sumeru to find Nahida, again running into Sawada and Akaba. We ask to see the essay and the short story again, and well, again, I don't read them, but luckily it does highlight where changes were made. In exchange for letting us read, we share what we learned in our recent trip to Inazuma. Sawada is a bit disappointed there's no ghost story or anything, but Akaba is satisfied that his hypothesis might be right. We leave the two to continue discussing while we head to find Nahida. We find out Scaramouche was also erased from Nahida's memories, and so we share with her the story of a puppet named the Balladeer. Despite our story being admittedly quite hard to believe, similar to the Blade story earlier, Nahida doesn't doubt the legitimacy, pointing out that since we aren't from Teyvat, it would make sense that Irminsul changes wouldn't impact us. So does that mean Paimon is from Teyvat? Was that ever in question? After some internal turmoil trying to understand Scaramouche's failed sacrifice, Nahida shares that every part of the story makes sense. Now, knowing that those he believed to betray him were always on his side, he had felt that he need to at least try to save them. She also shares to us a fairy tale record from her personal collection that she had found. She believes that in the past timeline, she must have written it as a backup to keep before we even entered Irminsul. It made it subtle enough that it wouldn't be impacted should anything have gone wrong inside. God of wisdom for you, I guess. While I'm not going to recap the fairy tale for you all because this script is already 30 pages long, the TLDR is that Scarammeow is one of the greatest things that Hoyoverse has ever released. And yes, I do own every bit of Scarammeow merch. Somehow after hearing the story, Nahida remembers everything, which is kind of crazy to me, especially considering that fact is very much skimmed over. It's beyond us telling her what happened. Nahida essentially restores her memories and overrides Irminsul. I genuinely do wonder what would ever happen if we told her the truth about Greater Lord Rukkhadevata, but for now, we decide to go for a walk to clear our head. In the Grand Bazaar, we remember that Greater Lord Rukkhadevata told us that no one can erase themselves from existence, referencing the fact that she needed Nahida, her reincarnation, to delete the records for her. So, it's essentially impossible for Scaramouche to have completely erased his existence. Just then, a familiar, albeit softer, voice speaking nearby calls our attention. Well, that answers our previous confusion. We hear that trauma-free, not Scaramouche, is helping out the merchant, and, well, doing a pretty bad job at it, and offers to go find some more Sensetias, so of course, we follow him. After a while, he finds them, but also reveals he noticed us following him the entire time. Well, we've never really been that good at sneaking, I guess. He doesn't believe us when we say he know who he is, so to prove it, we reveal that we know he's a puppet. That worked, and he agrees to join us wherever we want to bring him, as long as we let him give the Sensetias to the merchant first. The merchant tells Wanderer that he should go live his life, not waste it working at this fruit stall with him. Despite his apprehension, Wanderer agrees, leaving him and joining us on our trip back to Nahida. In this timeline, Wanderer is apparently traveling around Teyvat to train, referring to himself as a plant with no roots, at the mercy of the wind. He doesn't say that last part, but, you know, knowing what we know, it kind of makes a lot of sense. Nahida doesn't entirely know how to explain the situation to Wanderer, which is understandable, so she refers to the story of Scaramouche as his previous incarnation.
What was I like in my previous incarnation? Oh, okay. I see.
Ouch. Anyways, he insists on knowing the truth, and Nahida, honoring that request, doesn't mince words by telling him he did quite a few things that would be considered evil in his previous incarnation. After hearing the story of his past, Wanderer seems oddly understanding, but still wishes to see the memories for himself and experience them firsthand. Or secondhand? I don't know, this is a complicated situation. Nahida requests us to accompany him, so let's go through his trauma again. Don't worry everyone, if you've stuck around this long, we're almost done. We start in Inazuma at the Shake Pavilion, the place of... I guess the place of his birth? The place where he was left by A. In the first memory we witnessed, well, mostly listened to, the first meeting of Katsuragi and, I guess I'll refer to him as Kabukimono? The first meeting of Katsuragi and Kabukimono. Katsuragi, the adopted son of Mikoshi Nagamasa, was the one who found the puppet here all those years ago and brought him to Tatarasuna. Nahida fills in some of the blanks for Wanderer of what occurred in the Tatarasuna incident, and we move on to the next memory. After wandering, get it? The domain and opening a couple of chests, we find ourselves in the exact same room where we started. This time we hear and sort of witness Kabukimono introducing where he was born to a sickly child. The child mentions his parents and how they both used to make swords, but his parents both got sick and died. Nahida explains that Kabukimono found this child after leaving Tatarasuna, a fellow child without a name who was left behind by those he loved. They made a promise to live together, but unfortunately the child was already quite sick when they met. One day he came home to find the child had died. This, as we saw in his memories via Hypatia, was his third and final betrayal, which resulted in him finally leaving Inazuma. This time, we properly get teleported to another location, one we know already, the Delusion Factory. While we fight the Fatui agents, we hear a conversation between Kabukimono and the Jester. Wow, instead of my normal yapping to cover the fights, I can continue the story summary. In this conversation, the Jester invites Kabukimono to join the Harbingers. That's actually all there is to it, so I guess I do need to yap a little. Well, I guess my thoughts on the story quest. Cinema. Masterpiece. 11 out of 10. A lot of people knock Wander Remains as being just simps, and I mean, yeah. But from the get-go, I really enjoyed his story and his lore. He's such a complex character, and I am an absolute sucker for complex, morally gray characters. I know a lot of people hated how the game wrote this to make him playable, but I think it fits into his story perfectly. He's always been searching for a place to belong, a way to fill the void he feels from not having a human heart, and he, frankly, was never inherently evil. But try as he might, he can't run away from his sins or his past. Then again, I am very much a Scaramouche defender, so maybe I'm the wrong person to give any sort of opinion on this. Moving along, we enter the Delusion Factory main room, and for the first time, actually see Scaramouche in these memories instead of just hearing his voice. I guess they didn't want to make an in-game model of Kabukimono. Understandable. We witness a conversation between Scaramouche and Signora, where the latter mentions Scaramouche was usually fighting in the abyss, or being experimented on by the doctor. I think my only critique for this quest would be that part. There's such a huge gap between Tatarasuna, the Raiden Gokuden incident, and the present-day Delusion Factory. We don't really have any in-game discussion of what happens in the meantime, but hopefully that will come as we learn more about Totori and the Fatui's goals in Nodecry.
Do you remember the last time you were here? That was a lot of swordsmiths you killed. I'm sure the descendants of the Raiden Gokuden are still suffering the consequences now.
Yeah, again, this plus the little scene you only saw if you completed the quest in that summer event was as much as we really got to hear about the Raiden Gokuden incident. To be honest, they definitely could have used this to give a recap of the events from the Reconciled Stars event for those who didn't experience the quest, or give us a perspective of the event from Scaramouche's point of view. Then again, we all can see that he's very much a favorite of Hoyo, and the science that brought him into existence is connected to Conria. So ideally we'll eventually get both proper point of view recaps as well as expansion on his story that, you know, doesn't require reading every piece of information in every book or artifact set. Though actually in the future for past events like Reconciled Stars, we'll probably get the same kind of summary we got from the most recent interlude in Mondstadt. Finally, we return to Sumeru and the, God Factory. We see an academia researcher alongside Totori, Scaramouche, and Azar discussing the preparations for the Artificial Archon project. Azar warns that if a successful connection is made, Scaramouche will be permanently unable to move independently of the machine, something Scaramouche isn't exactly fazed by. We, introduce Wanderer to the Doctor before moving on to the last room of our trip down memory lane, or highway to memory. Well, you get it. Wanderer asks some heavy questions of Nahida, which, yeah, does make sense because God of Wisdom and all, and Nahida has a speech that is honestly just too good to summarize about what makes us all human.
Do you think there are any differences between your present self and your previous and future incarnations? If not, then what are the differences between humans and puppets? Whoever has tasted the joys and sorrows of life in the human realm is human. Whoever has loved and lost, cried with grief, howled with rage at the tragedy of death that eclipses the miracle of life, they are human too.
With that absolute truth bomb, Wanderer requests to reclaim his sins, regardless of consequence, and have his memories returned. He explains how he's drifted along looking for something to fill the void in his chest. In an attempt to erase his mistakes, Scaramouche instead just left behind an empty shell, desperate for something to cling to, much like his time as Kabuki-mono. I think the most important part of this entire story quest, though, comes from the traveler's internal dialogue. Are a person's sins an inescapable part of their destiny too? Knowing the story of Conria, and how much the quote-unquote sins of the people of Conria play such a massive role in that nation's destruction, this line, or at least the message behind it, will absolutely return in the future. Nahida agrees to return his memories, triggering an absolutely cinematic cutscene. Unfortunately, while Wanderer is reliving his trauma for the, third time? Fourth, we're interrupted by the occupant of this room, the artificial Archon. Lumine does her best to fight him alone, but, well, it took us hundreds of attempts and the little rabbit friend to defeat him last time, so fighting alone while trying to protect Paimon and Wanderer is less than ideal. However, just in the nick of time,
Die.
we're given a trial Wanderer. But, well, he's probably better built than the Accounts Wanderer since he has a signature weapon. If you're one of the minority who's still here, I am again so sorry this took so long. Hopefully this lengthy video makes up for it. Like I've mentioned, I've been dealing with quite a bit behind the scenes, some that I mentioned earlier and some that I didn't, but this video is finally here, so a win. I'm planning to try and get Gaming done and out before I leave for my trip, but I also need to film all of Skirk, well, at least Mondstadt to Inazuma, so we'll see what I can get done.
Imbecile! Get out of my sight.
Ah yes, the puppet we all know and love. With the sharp-tongued Wanderer back, Nahida brings us to the Sanctuary. Not much of a fan of the name Balladeer anymore, especially with its connection to the Fatui and the Doctor, he decides that he should change his name. He also shares that he has no intention of returning to the Fatui, not that they would have any interest in him, and seems thankful to the fact that despite everything else failing, at least he was successful in making most people forget about him.
Changing the world, changing the past, changing the fates of other people, these are not simple things to accomplish.
Don't we know it? Nahida also shares that she intentionally left all the information about his past. When questioned, she admits he's a useful asset to Sumeru and to her, meaning her goal, at least partially, was winning him over. However, she also wanted to make sure he knew the truth of his past and was given all the information prior to deciding if he would work with her, because just using him indiscriminately would make her no different than the Doctor, which, yeah. Nahida also gives him a lesson on human relationships, and, well, humanity in general, and truthfully, it's probably for the best that his closest ally be someone who is also non-human and has a long lifespan like he does. She is also very willing to clock him for shoving his emotions away. After all, he was initially scrapped as the vessel for the Gnosis because of his emotions, so we all know he has them. Look at them. I love the tiny mother and, well, less tiny son. Wanderer walks away a little bit to, probably, as the kids say, or a farm or something, and I'm sorry, and declares that he'll be sticking alongside Nahida going forward. Mission success. As we all know, the end of the interlude is the task to give Wanderer a new name, but it won't be me naming him. It will be you guys. Between now and, the end of June, I guess? I need time to run Fontaine and Natlan after all. Comment your ideas of what to name Wanderer. The top 2 most liked comments, the most frequently suggested name, and my personal favorite, for a total of 4 options, will be put into a poll on Discord to vote, and the winner will be his name for the challenge and revealed in the next video. The name winner will also receive a Welkin Moon from me. If the winning name is the one most frequently suggested, I'll do a random picker for those who suggested that name. The only rule is to follow Hoyoverse's rules and make sure that the name chosen is appropriate and won't get me bonked. Name can be as meaningful or as goofy as you want, so have fun and get commenting. A special shout out to my channel members. I very much appreciate you guys and your continued support while I've been MIA, and if you're new here, be sure to like and subscribe and hit the little bell so you never miss an upload. Until next time!